Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Glenn Jessome from Silver Tiger. Guys, I'm always really excited when I have a chance to have Glenn on because he's a guy who has lots of energy. He articulates what's happening in the mining markets particularly well, but also he's a guy who was able to raise capital at a time when the mining markets were pretty tough. And now that we're starting to see precious metals spike and capital start to flow in, I really wanted to get a sense of how capital's flowing, what debt raising looks like right now, and ultimately how his project, the El Tigre project, is moving along, which is one of those projects that I think that if you like silver, you're probably going to want to keep an eye on. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Glenn, it's great to see you again.
Steve, it's always a pleasure, and it's been too long. I think it was last fall. Where have you been?
Yeah. Well, we're always here. We always love having you on here.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
the precious metals market since we last spoke. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
If you told me that we were going to $3,400 gold, I would have had a hard time believing in it. It feels like us precious metals bulls that watch the market. We've been saying that there'd be a breakout like this at some point, and it felt like, oh, maybe we're all just crazy. Now it's coming. I got to ask you here, whether we're talking about gold or we're talking about silver, I'm sure you're going to touch on both. What's going through your head right now when you think about the precious metals market?
Look, I keep coming back to this, Steve, and you know, I guess we all sell our stories to a degree. We promote it, but our group out of Halifax been in Mexico almost 30 years, and all we do is every time we take a project that's 1,000 to 1 when it starts, and we turn it into a very beautiful, profitable mine. And that was always our goal with El Tigre and Silver Tiger. Um, we're doing backflips at these prices. We've never produced at 3,400 gold and $34 silver. Do I think that it has room to move? Gold is doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. I think we'd all agree it's a pretty, I wouldn't say unstable, maybe that's a word, risky kind of world right now. And gold is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And if you believe that we've printed too much money, if you believe that this new economic reorganization of the world that's being, led by Mr. Trump in the United States is going to happen, gold is going to, boy, what a spot for gold. So if you told me that we'd be manufacturing at 3,400, I said, wow. Do I think it has further to go? Absolutely. If you just look at the way it's trading right now. The other thing I want to comment on is 100 to 1. Silver to gold ratio right now is totally out of whack. And so look out when that goes back to its historic 75 to 1 or below, and that will happen. So yeah, we are ecstatic, and you don't hear me say this much. When we were at 2,500, I said that's enough. 3,000, that's enough. 3,400, oh boy. But even us, who just are as conservative as you get, because we have to build a mine that's going to produce on these values, we're starting to see a number with fours in front of it for both of them in the short term. So that's very exciting. And I like to talk about my project, but you've never heard me in any way over promote or overstate in all of our interviews or all that I've talked about for decades, the gold price. But something's happened, and boy, everybody better get on the gold and silver train because it's going to get real exciting. We think it's just beginning.
So, Glenn, almost everybody gets asked this question on these kinds of interviews, which is when is capital going to start to flow into the juniors? Now, I know you're different. You're very, very uh, strong junior CEO. You're not like the other 98% of them that are out there that can't raise money. You've been raising
Right.
money when the times were tough. You've recently raised money in Silver Tiger. But for those who aren't necessarily so strong, and even for you guys, it's going to be great when capital starts to flow in because people are going to start doing their due diligence. They're going to start going through interviews like these ones. They're going to go, I like that Glenn guy. I feel like he's a strong custodian of capital, and you're going to catch some watch lists. We'll put it that way. So the question becomes, at what point do we start to see that capital really start to flow into the junior names?
I'm gonna speak for our group, first. So as you know, it's not a hidden that we're out of Halifax. We're a group of companies. Uh, the gentleman who runs a company called Go Gold is the founder of this group. I've been so pleased to be able to work with him for a long, long time, Brad Langell. Um, and Silver Tiger is another company in the same group of companies, very separate companies, but just, a common goal of only building mines in Mexico. Well, if you look at the middle of 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 March and you say capital is not coming, these two companies raised over $100 million in bought deal financings like that. We weren't looking for it. Do you understand? Like we were fine. We had lots of money to execute our plan, um, and it just was offered. And that's 10% of $1 billion. That's a lot of capital. So we think that the institutions on the front end of gold and silver, look, they say they're the smartest guys in the world. Well, they get up every day and they invest billions of dollars in gold and silver projects, and they know when to put it in. Well, what a statement in these two companies. Leaving that alone, um, I can see why the question would be, why is the capital not flowing into all these juniors? Remember what I said, Steve? It's 1 in 1,000. So you want to play the lottery in all those, and they're gonna find something. They're gonna discover. It's really hard to find projects can be mines. Okay, even no matter how many, 1 in 1,000. And when you look at where I think the capital is going to flow, and your listeners should be listening, where's the alpha returns? Sure, you could bet on 100 and one of them is going to make a big discovery, or 1 in 1,000 that's going to be a mine. The big discovery is from the big return is from right here, and that's where the capital is going. We're proof of it. Two companies that have done all the hard work to be in a position where they're going to both start in the very near future months to build the next great silver mines in Mexico. And that Lassonde curve, you go up that like a rocket. As an example, we're trading 140 million Canadian market cap. Just the open pit, which we're going to build. The NPV Canadian on today's prices on that is 750 million. Just on the pit, forget the underground. We're going to talk about that later. We will trade at 1.1, 1.2 times that. Do the math. Like that's a 6, 7, 8 times return on this type of company. And when I say it's de-risked, you can't guarantee anything. We know exactly what's going to happen. We're already getting ready to build that. So from my perspective, the capital's coming. Is it going to go to the first guy who's, remember, 10 years ago, we drilled the first holes. Okay. It's 10 years to get to here. So is it going to go to that person? I think it's a risky world. And people say, I'm going on the sure bet. And you watch when we start building El Tigre, the exponential. That's what I'd be looking for. You don't have to invest in our company. You asked me where the capital is going. I just told you 10% of $1 billion went into two companies that are just getting ready to go up that Lassonde curve and build their mines. That's the smart money. People should try to follow that smart money sometimes.
So you've been doing this for years, and in the past, you've mentioned how I remember you saying this when we met at Rick Rule's conference last July, and that interview is on our YouTube channel, that there was basically 5 portfolio managers that will splash around some decent sized money, and you got all of them. I think it was 5. Um,
That's right.
and
And
that's something
and I'm not gonna say names, Steve, but they were all in that 15 million. Again,
yeah.
ramping up the
It,
position.
it,
Look, and I
you,
will
you- for anybody who does want to know, you actually did say it in the previous interview.
sure. So I'll tell you who reloaded up. Look, what was really nice for us is in our first raise to get this done was a bought deal in 2020. Go look at the press release. Guess who was the lead in that? I've probably a few of your people have heard of him, and we don't splash stuff like this around because he's an investor and we have sophisticated. We'll talk about Eric Sprott came in and led that. I didn't put any press release out, but guess who? All those years later, has all shares, watched all the way to they're going to build a mine. What a return! Guess who came in and was one of the lead investors in that 15 million? Eric Sprott. Here you go. Okay. You want to hear some more names? Franklin Templeton, Steve Land, the Precious Metals Fund, the biggest one I think on the planet. He's there again. He's been there in every offering, building his position. He owns 9.9% of the company. Pretty smart guy. Uh, Peter Miletus over at Merck, precious only. They came again, and on and on. It was like a rights offering. That's what it was. Almost. But it was like that.
So the reason that I bring that up is because something I think about a lot here in Canada, as you know how it is, where people talk about their institutional investors, which are often just hedge funds that are shorting the stock before they before they even officially invest. And as one of my buddies likes to say, when you take their money, you're you're not paying them to be investors. You're actually accepting their money so that they'll leave. Uh,
Okay, let's
and
talk about that, Steve. This is a beautiful thing you bring up. I love where you're going with. Let's talk about clipping warrants. Let's just get right into the game, okay? Did you notice all my bought deal financings? Did they have warrants attached?
no, they did
No,
not.
warrants attached. That's important, Steve. Guess how many hedge funds were in the 15 million? You guess. Well, I'll tell
0.
you, zero. Right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You have to use the tools you have.
Yep.
We've done enough to be strong enough to move with the experience of the group, with the mind building, where the project is. But remember, we started this in 2020, and after that, no warrants. I mean, we raised 100 million with no warrants. So that being said, that takes away that downtrend on the stock when it comes out. But many companies, look, early days in companies, you have to put a warrant on there, and then you prove it. And if you prove it, then you can get rid of it because it's part of the toolbox. It's part of you have to bring all of the investors in. I'm not against hedge funds. We've had hedge funds in all of our deals early and along the way. And I'm not saying everybody's clipping warrants, not the truth, but it gives you a stronger on the other side trading if you don't have the downdraft of, okay, I have a warrant. If the stock goes up, I can sell it, make some money, and keep the warrant. I would do that. If I invested, I would do that.
Yeah, the reason that I bring it up is just because I feel like when we look at the space and we think about just the lack of big names that are investing, obviously you're a an exception to the rule because you're able to go and get those. You're strong enough, whether we're talking about the Eric Sprotts or
Franklin's,
Templeton
all of them.
or Merck
Yep.
or you name it. But what kind of excites me about the space is that I think that as the generalist starts to pour in, we're going to start to get to see more of these funds emerge that haven't really been present for the last decade.
100, 1,000,000%. Okay. And look, it started already. Look at the performance of some of the companies. Look at one of my peers, Borla. Same sort of pit that we're going to have in Mexico. Well, go look. They're at a 5.2 or $5.8 billion market cap now. The big producers are doing well. Okay. They're making tons of cash. That's going to be reflected. The mid-sized producers are killing it, especially in Mexico. And now you're seeing the developers we raised 10% of $1 billion overnight in March. Overnight. Just offered. Didn't go look for it. Weren't marketing. Just here you go. So that money's going to the developers. What's next? Okay, now they're going to say, let's get down, let's start spreading money into the juniors, which will be good for everybody, the true juniors that are out there trying to be that 1 in 1,000. Because we only win as a junior if we build a mine. And that's the only way to do it, and that's how we keep score. Some do, some don't. That's how we keep score. That money's gonna come next. We see it building, and I mean, we're in the perfect spot, and it wasn't a fluke that we got here when we got here, especially with the timing in Mexico. So, we're in the driver's seat of our destiny, and I think the alpha return is on the build. But I think the junior is going to start getting some real love, especially when this price. I think $4,040 is 4,000 gold and $40 silver. It's just going to keep building, and you're going to see that money coming. I can't guarantee it, but that's what I think. The big producers are making money hand over fist. It's going to continue as the price goes up. The mid-tier producers, especially some of the peers we have, like an Orla in Mexico, trading at almost, over $5 billion market cap. And now you're starting to see developers who are ready to build, like us, like our companies. 10% of $1 billion were just offered to us, and the next level is the juniors. It's coming. People get excited, especially if this drive in price continues. and the world continues to be the world's changed, and I think it's been a if you look at all the things that are going on, is that good for gold? Well, absolutely. Just look at the gold price. Is that going to continue? In my opinion, 100% it is.
The last time we had you on, you talked about how Claudia Scheinbaum came out with a 100-point plan, and point 87 originally included the banning of open pit mining, which just quietly disappeared. And then during PDAC, Mexico came out and made a statement. What can you tell us about this? What's the state of mining in Mexico like right now?
Let's just do a little summary here. And Mexico is a democratic country. They choose their presidents, like the U.S. have chose a president, like we just chose a prime minister in Canada. And if when they win, they get to put their ideology and their thoughts and their governing process in place. That's the way it works, and it's the best thing, and why we have a Western civilization that is based on democracy. Um, the 6 years that we really developed El Tigre to get to the point here, except for the last, half a year, the Mexican people picked a party, Morena, led by many would know him as AMLO. And he had his own ideologies, and he ran the country very successfully, very popular president of Mexico. And it was difficult during that period for us because it just was uncertainty. We always thought and just kept driving our projects forward, raised hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to get them to where we are, over 100, well over 100 for Tiger during that difficult time. So we're here ready to build now that, everything would be fine in Mexico. It's one of the world's top mining destination countries, the top for silver. And we knew that AMLO's term would end, and then we would have a new president. And Scheinbaum, President Scheinbaum has been incredible. When she first came in, we weren't sure. I had my thoughts. I was very, very positive on her government, what she would govern like. I kind of said, "Here's where I think it's going to go," but you don't know for sure. But it's gone there. Let's just got Reader's Digest. I could talk on this for 2 hours, and we don't have the time for that. But basically, we started getting all kinds of messaging last fall that things were going to be very good. We were interacting with the government. We were called to Mexico City for many, many meetings about how mining was going to unfold. She gave her two little speeches that were very important. She made a wonderful speech to the country in January. It was called Mexico Plan, 2030, her 6 years. And she laid out everything, what she was going to do in nearshoring, all kinds of different things, and make Mexico. I think I said this in the summer. I thought her goal last year was that she would make Mexico a top 10 world economy. She said that was her goal. And I think she can. And I predicted that she would. And a big part of that was mining. There was a whole part of her speech that was mining. We're gonna open up mining. We're gonna bring capital in for mining. We felt great about that. This is not me in any way selling or promoting. I'm just gonna pass on the facts of what happened at PDAC, and that because some of it's kind of old news, but some of your listeners may not have heard it. We were all there. They had a large Mexican pavilion. There was a large crowd. I don't know if it was 500, 600, and Mr. Aboites, who is the minister, we would call him the Minister of Mining. He has a long title, but he's the Minister of Mining. That's how we would know him in Canada, and I'm sure it would be a similar sort of thing in the United States. He gave a speech, and it's been reported on the press. I can send you, if you want to attach the articles that came out after that to our interview. All of the Mexican press covered it, the Canadian press, and it was Reader's Digest. So you read the facts yourself. But it was and this was a message from the government of Mexico he was delivering. He was pointed to do that, and it was, we are open for Canadian companies to explore and find deposits in Mexico. We will facilitate exploration permits to do that. The second thing he said was that basically we are doing some internal work, and we are going to basically the modification permits. We're flying all through the year. I'll tell you about a couple of those in a minute. More important, we're going to continue to give out modification permits, which means you already have a permit. You're environmentally approved for a mine site, and you need to amend it, grow it, a new type of deposit, go underground if you're an open pit, or vice versa. We're going to keep doing those. There've been some big ones already. And the big thing for us was, he said, an open pit permit and an underground permit are the same. They're basically they're both going to be issued after the reviews, and so that was very interesting for us. We'll come back to Tiger and how that affects us in the end, but we've seen proof in the pudding. Alamos, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, had an open pit called Mulatos. They pretty well exhausted that. They needed a new permit for a 2,000-ton underground per day mine. That's a 200 million capex spend US. Uh, because they had the permit, they were issued the modification to go underground. Mag Silver, Juanicipio, in partnership with Fresnillo, they basically found a brand new portal for a mine on that same site. They were given a new permit under the existing one called a modification because they had an underground permit to go underground. Things in Mexico could not have gone better. Modification permits are coming. New permits, and there was an allusion to it would be June of this year. That's coming up very soon. So very, very positive. Mexico's on. Go look at the Mexican companies and how they've re-rated in the last 4 or 5 months, including us. And it's just the tip of the iceberg for us. So Mexico, exactly as we predicted, hoped, I would say it's evolved better than even we could have hoped for. Full stop. And that's fact.
Okay, so let's get into an update on Silver Tiger and with the El Tigre project.
El Tigre.
I've been learning Spanish on Duolingo, by the way. It's my new favorite pastime. Uh, um, so maybe what you could talk about here is if we can get into what the exploration plans look like for 2025. I know you guys have a PEA that's supposed to be coming out in, I
Right.
believe, the first half of this year, and that's for the
It
underground
will.
portion of your mine. Also, you guys raised a bunch of money. I assume that that's being spent on exploration, but maybe you can give us an update on everything that's happening.
You shouldn't have presumed that, Steve, because yes, there's some exploration, but we're the 1 in 1,000 that now is spending a lot of money to get ready to build our open pit. So let's start there. PFS will build on that. And now people would say, well, can you really do that? Well, I can tell you that the only reason the PFS or feasibility study is important is not to impress my shareholders. It's can I get the debt to build it? Remember, this is an 89 million, 86 million capex, all US dollars I'm talking about. I have 3 term sheets right now for 100 million USD each. And I can tell you, and you ask about capital coming back. A lot of these debt providers are flush with capital. It flowed in there first. I mean, billions of dollars. I have 3 term sheets for 100 million. I could accept any one of them right now. I'm still negotiating them. I'll have it ready when I start to build, and I'm very, very pleased with the terms we've got so far, and they will get better. So that's number 1. PFS worked. I've got the term sheets from the debt providers to build it. Done. Um, Now, let's talk about what that little project looks like. Do the math in your head. I started to allude to it. At today's prices, forgetting the study prices, we do things low. We did it at $2,100 gold and $26 silver. I think we're past that. Imagine the economics now. NPV. I'm going to talk Canadian dollars today. MPV. Underground will go forever and add on. We'll talk about that. 750 million Canadian NPV. We're trading at 130, 140. We will trade when we put this in production at 1.1 to that. Everybody else does. Number 1. Number 2, it's got a 70% IRR. The payback is 1.3 years on all the capital. And the last part of that is it makes 75 to 80 million dollars USD after tax free cash flow each year for the first 9 years. And that pit is only 60% of the ore. It will expand after the 9 years. Put that in perspective, and you go look at big mining companies, some of the ones, the big silver companies, what they make. That pit is unbelievable, and we're going to build it. Remember, modification permits are coming. We now know that the government has announced that an underground and an open pit permit are the same. So with respect to that, our modification permit is what we filed. We have the already permit for the underground. When I bought this asset, that permit came with it. That being said, we're going actively through that process. It's going very well. It's going well enough, and we'll leave that alone for now, that 15 million USD, what are we going to do with it? We're spending it getting ready to build. I don't spend money until I'm pretty sure it's not a waste of money. I knew always getting this pit ready. I always figured it would be fine on the other side. It was. We've hired Caps Cassie to do the final engineering, final metallurgical work. We've requisitioned the 250-person man camp that will be required there to build the mine and then run the mine. We are getting ready to sign the contract for the power supply to the mine. So we're going to spend that money right out of the gate. Minute that we're spending it before permit. We're comfortable enough that we can. And so a lot of that capital is going to be focused. Think about what I said. This is an 18-month build, and this will free cash flow at today's prices. Wow, what happens if they go up? I don't even want to think about it. Of almost 100 million USD free cash flow a year just from the pit. So that's our focus because we won. That's the 1 in 1,000. Now let's talk about door number 2. Remember, that's the first half of the deposit. Open pit, classic Mexico, easier, lower capex, huge cash flow. Then you go underground. So we're catching up with the underground. I'm just so happy with the work the team has done. We have that permitted for 800 tons per day underground, as you know. So we've already bought that mill out of Canada. It's on the mountain. We built the 50-kilometer road to haul it right to site. So we're ramping up to get that done, and of course the build for the open pit first. That build will be about a year, maybe a bit more. But remember, we got 100 million silver equivalent ounces in the pit, 120 million underground already. 800 tons, it would take me 31 years to mine all that ore. And we're going to keep adding because we're drilling underground. We'll talk about that again. So that 800 tons per day is where we'll start. That'll go to 16 and 24. But the PEA is coming. And I got to be careful. All the work's done. It's now write the document in the next month and get it out to the people. And so they can see, or the shareholders, so they can see it. Extremely excited about it. Extremely excited about the grade people are going to see. Because remember what people have forgotten, Steve. What is Tiger? The highest grade silver mine we ever saw in Mexico from 1908 to 1930. 2.5 kilos per ton was 2.5 kilos silver per ton was the average grade. 1.2 kilo cutoff for those 22 years of production. 100 million silver equivalent ounces. I'm not to say we have those grades, but boy, people have forgotten what the Tiger is. They're soon going to know. This PA is going to be great. Excited to get it out. That's door number 2. And of course, then drive that to PFS by 2026. Pits in production at the end of 26, generating that free cash flow. Then take a year and build the underground. You wake up 5 million silver equivalent ounces out of the pit, 5 million silver equivalent ounces in the underground as a get-go, which will expand. Go look at some of the companies and what they sold for recently that did 10 million ounces, especially Silvercrest. Almost 2 billion US they just sold for. Gatos, half of it. Same style pit as Tiger, basically. They got $1 billion for that from First Majestic. So we know we've won. The rest of the world is going to soon figure that out when we start to build this thing. This is the company we want to invest in right now. This is where the money's going. You said where the capital's going? I wish it was going to I don't know. Some of these juniors, it's coming to us. And when we get this permit and start building very soon, quickly, successfully, you watch this, you watch us go up that Lassonde curve. It's exciting, and we just can't wait to deliver for our shareholders.
All right, well, Glenn, we were supposed to only do 15 minutes. We've gone close to 30. That always happens every time we have you on. It's always great having you on here. Something that I really appreciate about you is that you know your numbers. You don't tiptoe around questions. And you always leave me pretty excited about Silver Tiger. I'll admit I'm not a shareholder, but hearing you talk about it does get me kind of excited. And we always appreciate getting the time to sit down with you and getting your
Well,
thoughts on everything. So thanks very much for hopping on
Steve,
here
it's
today.
always a pleasure. And you know what? You should become a shareholder now because, we've re-rated to about 140 million market cap. We know we're going to get it. Pretty soon our amendment for our permit is going to be issued. And when that does, I think that, look, are we doubling? Are we going to 60 cents? Are we going to 55? There will be a major move. And remember, this will be one of the first, if we get it, open pit permits, so the first issued in Mexico. So let's just say that happens. Major re-rating in our stock, major re-rating in all the Mexican stocks because everybody's waiting for that first big kind of new one, even though there's a modification. And then that's the first move, and the second move is come along with us for 18 months and watch us build this thing. And I do think that you're looking at a 5, 6, 7 times return if we trade at prices we are at today, just on the NPV on the pit. PEA and the underground is just a bonus. So look, great time. Steve, go buy some stock. You're gonna be very happy very soon. Anyway, that's the last of my pitches. Just a pleasure to be able to look, talk about the market, which we think is incredible. I just like to tell how good things and how sentiment has come back to Mexico for all of our Mexican peers. We really we had a hard, a hard go for 5 or 6 years. And Mexico's back, and I think the investors should start looking at that. I think they'll be happy in a couple of months, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Guys, also let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching, everyone.